I was scrolling through the TV at 10 o'clock on Saturday night, I guess after one of the college football games. And so I got to see one of those Saturday night reruns. Ever see those? It was like a year ago. And it'll say, this is a rerun, waiting for the 11:30. I never stay up that late, so I only get to see the reruns. So I get to see the reruns, and guess who they were doing a parody on? I forget the show. It was like November of 2018 with Sheriff Clarke. And I'm like, hey, he's come to age. They're doing a parody. I'm sure he's seen it. It was a year ago. First time I'd seen it. Ann and I were laughing. It was so funny. I'm like, wow, when Saturday night is making fun of you, you've arrived. And Sheriff Clarke, I'm sure they've done it many other times. I don't always get to stay up and watch it, but I happened to see that rerun, and that was pretty funny. Happy Thanksgiving, John Fredericks Radio Network. Joining us now, America's Sheriff David Clarke. Sheriff Clarke, great to have you, man.
Thanks, John. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody, to you and your family. And, I remember somebody telling me that, and they had recorded it and sent it to me. And you're right. When you make Saturday Night Live, you have arrived, but I'm living rent-free in the left's head.
It was pretty funny, actually. One of the actors made fun of. They had the big hat on, and it was actually pretty funny. So they did you very well, actually. So we were laughing at that. I don't know if there were any other ones, but that was pretty good. And you were at the wall, at the border wall, I think. It was pretty good. So you've definitely arrived. Okay, we got to get to politics, and got a couple polls out. Got your column to talk about. Thanksgiving coming up. But Sheriff, I know you're a Dallas Cowboy fan. Boy, that was a tough game. The Cowboys lost there on Sunday to New England. They come back at home on Thanksgiving Day, but I mean, there was a call in that game. Remember, it was like third and 1, and they got that tripping penalty, and like there was no penalty. I mean, that to me was the end of the game, and I thought we changed the rules so those could be reviewed.
Yeah, not that call, but it's been painful this season. It's been similar to the Cubs season, up and down, up and down. They win a couple games, they look like they're world beaters, and then the next thing you know, they underperform. Those kind of calls happen in every game, though. Every game there's a team that could say, hey, this call here, that call there. But if you play well, then you eliminate any bad call. You eliminate anything that the referees could do in terms of potentially deciding the outcome of a game. And the fact is that they didn't play well. They had a chance to win. They should have won that game. Could have won. Could have won that game. And they didn't play well on special teams. That's what killed them. They had a block punt that gave New England a chance to start at their own 10. They punched that in for 6, and then they had a couple of miscues on kickoffs. They wouldn't change their strategy and move their guys up. New England kicking into a strong win, so they were pooch kicking on kickoffs. Dallas had their back guy back in the end zone, and so the ball would hit at the 20, bounce around. They almost lost it a couple times there. It was ugly, and it's been a season like that, very frustrating.
Well, now what happens, right? I mean, you guys are 6-5. You've got a very tough schedule. The Eagles play nobody. I don't even think they have they play, other than Dallas, a team with a winning record. They play absolutely nobody. You Cowboys have a tough schedule coming up, and now you're at risk of maybe not making the playoffs.
Yeah, which wouldn't bother me, because then we would probably get rid of Jason Garrett. That's a move I've been calling for,
why don't you like Garrett?
5 years.
Why don't you like Garrett?
The guy can't get this team to overperform. His teams underperform. They take on the personality of him. Football is a game of energy. It's a game of high emotion. His teams come out flat. It's why they always come out. And next thing you know, before the game hardly starts, they're down 10-0, 14-0. Just about every game this year, they've started from behind, and then even the ones that they've won, they had to come back to win. And they're taking on the personality of the coach. And I think he's gotten his team as far as he can. The talent is there. Mm-hmm. Jerry Jones has paid a lot of money to put this team together to perform, and to perform well and contend. You can't win a Super Bowl every year, but unless you're New England, of course. But at least you can contend, and they don't contend. Jason Garrett in 10 years has won 2 playoff games. And that doesn't mean in the other 8 he's gotten to the playoffs. He's never been to an NFC Championship game in 10 years, John. That is unacceptable by Dallas Cowboy standards.
Well, I think you're right. Look, the game at home Thursday, Thanksgiving Day tomorrow. Buffalo coming in. Buffalo, one of the most overrated teams, 8-3, the worst 8-3 team ever. They've not beaten anybody either. They beat Tennessee, my team, about a month and a half ago. We missed 4 field goals and got beat by 6. Had 3 turnovers in the second half. Should have won that game. You guys are a 6.5 point favorite. Must win game. I mean, if you guys get beat at home by the Bills, you're not going to make the playoffs.
You're right. 6.5. I would take Buffalo in the points. I don't think Dallas wins by 6.5. They should win. But again, we get into that shoulda, coulda stuff with Dallas. We'll see what happens. But they put themselves in this position. They have to win out. Yeah, they got a tough schedule, but so what? They're a professional football team. This is a team, Dallas Cowboys, that lost to the Jets. The Jets were 0-6 at the time, John. So when you look at the situation, I don't think they deserve to be in the playoffs.
Right. Well, that's what your owner, Jerry Jones, said. He said, the issue wasn't the bad call against the Patriots. The issue was getting beat by the Jets. Because you win that game like you should. You're 7-4. It's a little bit different. Outlook is different. But look, I'm going to bet the Cowboys and lay the 6.5 because I think they're the better team and I think they're going to win. And I really think Buffalo is the most overrated 8-3 team maybe ever. I just don't think they're any good. And, this is a must-win game for Dallas. It's not for the Bills. They are going to make the playoffs. They got a 2-game wild card lead over everybody else. They would have to collapse. So, besides, here's my tradition on Thanksgiving. I make 2 bets. I bet every Thanksgiving, Dallas at home, Lions at home. I don't care who they're playing or what the spread is. That's what I bet. That way I don't have to think about it. And, most of the time I'm in the game where I go over 50%. But Thanksgiving Day, Dallas and the Lions at home, I don't care who's hurt, who they're playing. That's what I do. So we'll go on from there. Sheriff, I'm going to get to your column in a minute. I want to get to this. The Trump 2020 launched the Black Voices for Trump Coalition in Atlanta. But here's the thing, and I was just talking to Kiera about this and to Colonel Mike and others. So 2 polls come out, Emerson and Rasmussen. These are very well-recognized firms, show black support for the president at 34.5% and 34% respectively. Then today, another poll comes out, Morning Consult, shows African-American support for the president at 30.5%. So you've got 3 polls all showing over 30%, but yet you talk to people and it's like, well, I don't think that's true. Where's the disconnect here?
Yeah, let's kind of sort that out a little bit quickly.
Thank
here.
you.
I always advise people, don't pay attention to the polls. And the reason I say that is because you have to know the polling methodology, and most of the times polling firms do not tell you what their methodology is. So you don't know if they steered it toward this, but I would say this much, that those numbers, those are indicative probably of black support for the president. Look what he's done. The lowest black unemployment rate in the history of this country. Not just the unemployment rate, but entrepreneurship, black entrepreneurship is up under Trump. New businesses started. Black homeownership is up. You look at things like that, that matters to black people. He supports school choice so they can get their kids out of these failing urban ghetto schools. That matters to black people. So in terms of support, yeah, I could see it. I think it should probably be higher and might be higher depending on the methodology. But here's the key, John. Support doesn't turn into votes, okay, necessarily. So he could have 30, 35, 40% black support. The question is, on Election Day next November, will they go out and vote for Donald Trump? There's a difference between support and vote.
I see where you're coming from on that. So, speculating it, okay, well, you have to start with saying, I'm an African-American and I approve of what the job the president's doing. You have to start there. So if you have 30%, if half of those turn into votes, and let's say Trump in 2020, Sheriff Clarke gets 15% of the black vote, 15 to 17%, which would be half of that race over. It's a landslide. Not only that, if you're a Democrat, you got to be looking at these three polls, and you got to be crapping your pants.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, this is what happened to the Democrats last year, and they knew it. They had a black vote deficiency problem all throughout Mrs. Bill Clinton's campaign. Here's where this could make the difference. Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, states with population centers that have a lot of black people, right? Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, you go to Michigan, Detroit, you come to Wisconsin, Milwaukee. What I was working on last year, 3 years ago, it seems like it was last year because these 3 years under Trump have flown by, was I was going around the country doing a lot of TV and radio, telling black people, black voters, you got two choices. Vote for Trump or stay home. Guess what they did? They stayed home. Got about 8-9%, I think, of the black vote, which was higher than Bush, his predecessors in the GOP, higher than Bush and Mitt Romney even, and John McCain. But what they did was they stayed home. So if you got 34%, 35% in those polls saying that they approve of the job he's doing or they support the job that he's doing, maybe they stay home again. If that happens, so see, he doesn't need 15%. Right, if he gets 15% of the black vote in these swing states, Virginia, North Carolina, states he has to win, Florida, you're right, Ohio, it's over. But if blacks don't turn out for the Democrat candidate, he wins going away too.
I think you're right, but this is really, really got to be a wake-up call for the Democrats who have taken, as we all know, Sheriff, many of us have said this, like yourself, forever. They've taken the black vote for granted for a very long time. They do nothing but show up during Election Day. I mean, for instance, I remember so many instances where, at the last days of the campaign, politicians would go into black churches to get out their vote and whatever, and never went there except in the final 3 days or 4 days before the campaign, until they were up for re-election again. And go there during, if you're a senator or congressman, go there during the first 6 months of the new year. Visit them. No, they always wait until the final week. So maybe the gig is up, right?
Yeah, it's desperation time when a guy like Pete Buttigieg had to Photoshop some blacks into an ad.
I know, right? Did you hear about that?
Improve his black bona fide. Yeah, I thought that was hilarious, but I wasn't surprised. The Democrats have been caught doing that before. And then they Photoshop in some guy from Kenya, for heaven's sakes. They couldn't even find, they weren't even smart enough to find some black American to Photoshop in. They really screwed it up and put a Kenyan in. But this is the kind of disrespect they have shown, they meaning the Democrat Party, has shown black people in America for the last 50 years, but yet blacks still monolithically continue to go to the polls every 4 years and vote for the Democrat. But maybe we'll see a shift. I wouldn't count on it. I wouldn't bank on it from the Trump campaign, but at least they're going after it. That's something that McCain, Romney, and Bush never did.
Right. Well,
so I find that encouraging.
At least you're getting 30 to 35% approval, so you have somewhere to start. And that is really the good news. But, yeah, Mayor Pete Buttigieg's campaign, I mean, get this, everybody listening. They put out a piece in Iowa, and they Photoshop in African Americans. Like, they couldn't find a picture of him with any black people anywhere, ever, right, for his campaign mail. So they Photoshop in black people. Come on, man. Could you imagine if a Republican did that? It would be in the New York Times.
You know what? It would be over in terms of black support. And, the fact that the left has done everything, the Democrats, to paint Trump as a racist, and it's a lie. They have really worked overtime to try to paint him as a racist in order to prevent this black support from growing. John, it's not working. People are seeing right through it. They know he's not a racist. He's never been a racist, and that's why they're scrambling right now.
I know, it's pretty funny. All right, I want to go to your op-ed on Town Hall. Go to townhall.com. Headline: Spencer fired. That's Navy Secretary Spencer fired. The liberal media's hair goes on fire, and America yawns because all these people serve at the pleasure of the president. and Secretary Spencer defied the president, went around him, went around his boss at the Department of Defense, Espy, the secretary, the DOD secretary tried to have a backdoor channel to the White House. They fired him, and everybody's going crazy over it. And you're right. I mean, these people serve at the pleasure of the president. I mean, what is going on in Washington where the president fires people that don't support his agenda and everybody goes crazy?
Yeah,
Obama fired everybody.
You know, most presidents do, and they get the right to do that. I think if President Trump has made one mistake, he didn't clear the decks soon enough.
Thank you.
He gets about 4,000 presidential appointees in the administration, and that includes his cabinet. And some of it was his doing, but some of it was that the U.S. Senate was slow-walking the Democrats.
That's
and,
correct.
And some Republicans were slow-walking some of his appointees, and that's what happened as well. But what's wrong with these people? You know, apparently, and you're right, it's in my column, townhall.com. I encourage people to go there and read it every week. These things are thought-provoking when I put pen to paper. But these people need a crash course in the Constitution. The president is the commander-in-chief. I don't care if you don't like his foreign policy or his military policy, foreign policy in the case of the State Department. You've had State Department ambassadors that, you know, didn't like his Ukraine policy and didn't like this policy. I don't care what they don't like. Gosh darn it, then resign if you don't like it. If you're a career civil servant, he can't fire you if you're a career civil servant. And some of these people are. Some of these people that have testified in this scam impeachment hearing are talking about, you know, well, they didn't like this, and no president's ever done that. I don't care what no president's ever done. Right. It doesn't matter.
That's right.
He gets to do this. And,
right.
You know, this is foreign to us. It really is that people would be insubordinate like this to the president of the United States. I look at this stuff, and it just baffles me. I remember the Democrats not too long ago. I saw a story where they're complaining about that Trump shouldn't be involved in some of these military decisions. He's the commander-in-chief. And then I reminded him in this column, too, Barack Obama relieved General Stanley McChrystal from his command because he spoke out of turn in a Rolling Stone magazine.
That's
and when
right.
he did that, I supported the president. I said, You cannot do that to the commander-in-chief.
I agree.
And guess what? Nobody said a word.
Right, because he's the president. Look, Bill Clinton had somebody removed for one general. I forget where they were, and I supported him too on this. He had a couple scotches, right, couple bourbons, and blasted Clinton in a public format when he was overseas. Clinton fired him the next day. I mean, you have to do this, right? So this guy, Navy Secretary Spence, doesn't want to do what the president asks him to do with Gallagher. That's number one. Number two, he goes around his boss and back channels something to get some compromise worked out with the White House around his boss, who is the Secretary of the Department of Defense, Espy, goes around him, and so they fire him, just like they fire anybody, and yet everybody's going crazy. I mean, Tim Kaine, my senator here, is asking for a hearing. Hearing for what? Right? I mean, Obama fired all these people. You're right. Nobody said a word. He got elected president. He has that right. 4,000 political appointees, Sheriff Clarke. Only 1,000 have been filled, and half of those by never-Trumpers. I mean, it's sick what has gone on. Much of it the president's fault. Didn't have the right people in from the beginning. But I'm talking to somebody at the other end of this line right now on the phone here, on the radio station, that wanted an opportunity to serve in the Trump administration and ran into all kinds of resistance from his own party, couldn't get through, and now you're on the outside. I mean, you're a perfect example, right?
Yeah, but, you know, things work out for the best.
I know that.
They did. You know, and the president agreed that I would go with the Super PAC America First. There'd be a better spot as well, and it turned out that it was. So, you know, but remember Sally Yates, the former acting Attorney General of the Department of Justice, when she defied the president's immigration policy and told all of her assistant U.S. attorneys across the country, do not carry out that policy. But all of these people to do this publicly, and then she was asked to resign. She refused, and then he had to fire her. But you see this stuff going on, it's insubordination. I mean, I was an executive as the sheriff. I wouldn't have tolerated any of that crap in my office from my high-ranking officers or anybody.
Right.
And you have to put your foot down, otherwise you'll get run over. So good for the president. He sends a message. Nothing sends a stronger message about how serious you are than firing somebody. So good for him.
You're right. Sheriff David Clarke, America's Sheriff. Go to americasheriff.com, americasheriff.com. He's also a senior advisor, buildthewall.us. Happy Thanksgiving.
John, same to you and your listeners. Be well.
We'll see you next week. And, hey, Sheriff, at the end of the game, at about 7:30, I guess 6:30 on Thanksgiving Day, when the Cowboys win by 3 touchdowns, you'll say, darn, that Fredericks was right again. Sheriff, have a happy Thanksgiving. It's going to be a blowout. John Fredericks Radio Network.